I didn't see you there. I just got back from my professional gig on the flute as, yeah, it was in Symphony Center in Carnegie Hall in Austin, Texas. And I just wanted to share some of my flute success stories that I've had. So come on a journey with me. Let's learn how to play the flute together. I mean, I know how to play it. I'm a professional. The first thing we want to do is set the flute down in its case onto a nice flat surface. Try to keep in mind exactly where the bottom of the case is. On this Yamaha case, we've got little bumps on the bottom here that tell us that that's the side that should be on the flat surface. Once we've determined which side is down for our latches, we're going to open them so that nothing falls out. Now here we've got the three pieces of the flute. Right here we have the body of the flute, the biggest and where most of our fingers go. We have the head joint, which is where we will put our lips when we blow air into it, and then the foot joint. This will go at the bottom of the flute once we put it all together. The first thing I'm going to take out is the body of the flute. I'm going to pick it up like this, kind of on the sides of it, just to make sure not to push down any keys if I can help it. Then the next thing I'm going to pick up is the foot joint. I just try to pick it up again on the side with the least amount of keys. Now it may be tempting to line up the buttons with the buttons because that just makes sense, but you should line up this rod here with these buttons here. Give it a nice little twist. And then this rod should be centered with these buttons. The final piece of the flute that we need to put on is our head joint. There's no keys to click down on this one. Score! So for this one, I'm going to lightly hold the flute, trying not to push down too many buttons, and I'm going to again twist this into place. With the head joint, you'll know it's in the right spot when the embouchure hole, where your air goes through, lines up with the buttons down here. Let's double check that. Oh, there we go. On this specific model of Yamaha, there's also a little logo here. Yeah, you can see that. It's a little logo, then little words with an arrow. You can also use these symbols to help line up your flute. If you don't have that, you can always use the embouchure and button trick. Now our finished flute. Pretty freaking epic. Now we can start learning about our hand position. While hand position is very important to the flute, the first thing that we need to learn is how to properly sit when we play the flute. First, we'll want both of our feet flat on the floor. We'll want them about shoulder width apart. I'd show you my shoulders, but I'm a little too high up for that. Next thing we'll want is our bodies to be a little near the front of the chair, probably not laying back like this, because that doesn't really inspire great airflow. Going to have our butts a little bit on the edge of the chair, keeping with our feet at shoulder width length. We're going to have a nice straight back, just straight enough where we can take a nice deep breath. After this, we can raise our flutes up to their playing position, vaguely. As you can see, this arm is kind of stretching. To avoid our arm having to stretch like this, we can go a little bit over to our right side of our chair, angle this way, but keep our hands in the same position. Suddenly, my arm isn't having to overextend. Now we'll learn how to put our fingers onto the flute. This part of the process can be a little complicated since there are so many button-looking things on the flute. Where do we actually put our fingers? Let's go over our left hand first. That's the one that makes an L when you do the L shape with your hands. Fingers are going to lay like this. 1, 2, 3, float. Then our thumb is going to hover over here. More likely than not, it's going to be pushing down this rectangle key. For our right hand, the one that does not make an L when you're making an L, will go like this. 1, 2, 3, float. Your thumb There's nothing for it here. This is going to stay down all the time, as it's going to help you balance your flute. Now, if you would, pause the video and practice a few times putting your fingers on and taking them off of the flute to make sure that you've got that down. Once you have all of your fingers down on the flute, just think about raising it up to your mouth so that your embouchure hole is right in line with your lips. There we go. Professional flute player. And then everything else should follow pretty naturally. When you're first lining up your embouchure for the flute, your playing posture for the flute, try to have it pretty parallel with the ground. Don't have it up here, but also don't have it all the way down here. A little lower is alright. And from here, we're ready to make our first notes after we learn how to do the embouchure. Just like any other woodwind instrument, one of the biggest challenges can be trying to make a consistent sound on the head joint or the mouthpiece or the reed of the instrument. For the flute specifically, let's think about the word poo, right? Do you remember that app from like 10 years ago? I would use that religiously. Anyway, we're going to think about the word poo, not because we like to go to the bathroom, but because it's really good for flute embouchure. So say that in a British accent, perchance. Try puh. Puh, puh. If it wasn't applied, you should say that with me. Puh, puh. Now let's add a little more breath to it. Puh, puh, puh. Now I want you to try to keep that mouth opening, but make a really consistent airstream, and put your hand in front of where the air is coming out of. And as you're blowing air out, I want you to notice, is your air going, or is it going, whoom, onto your hand? Neither is like good or bad, just figuring out where we are. Mine is a little, and that's because I'm a professional flute player. No other reason. And the reason that we want to identify that is so that we can make it a bit more consistent, trying to aim it at one specific spot. So think about what you were just doing and try to aim your air for one place. If you're getting multiple places, that's great, because multiple angles of air are used on the flute. If not, this is still a really great starting point for us. Now that we have our p lips, we're going to put it onto the embouchure hole. I'm funny. We're going to set our bottom lip about, I don't know, an itty bitty little, maybe a millimeter, on top of the embouchure hole, like this. Itty bitty little. And we're going to have the p shape of our lips. Ugh. Side view. And now we're going to blow air with a t. If you can't quite get it yet, that's alright. It can be a little difficult to get sound on the flute at first. Try rolling the flute back and forth until you get the most amount of sound coming out of the head joint. If this still isn't working and you sound sort of like, oh, I like that. I guess it's just a professional flute player in me. If you're not able to get any sound out of your head joint, try adjusting your lips as well. Maybe they're too far in and you can't get a consistent sound, or maybe they're too far out. That kind of hurt to do, so I hope you're not doing that, because the flute shouldn't hurt. Overall, it's a lot of trial and error. I worked for a lot of weeks to get a sound that's pretty consistent on this instrument, so don't give up, never give up. Here's what the first sounds on the head joint should sound like. Once we're able to get those sounds cranking, let's start focusing on what our tongue is going to do to separate the notes, also called articulation. Remember when I said blow into your head joint with a two sound? That itself is articulation. Articulation is just separation between notes. Some people might want to start their sounds with ooh, two, 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 but it's very important to start your very first sound on the flute with a two, no matter what. That will help us get consistent tone in our playing, as well as being able to get a very clear sound right at the beginning. Try that a few times along with me, if you have your flute with you. Nice job! Probably. Now that we've been able to make all these sounds on our instrument, we know how to sit and we know how to hold the instrument, it's time to play a little something. Now, from my professional flute player repertoire, I could play such famous things as the Queen of the Night aria and Strange Humors by John Mackey, but what I'm going to play is Hot Cross Buns so that everyone at home can follow along with me, my live studio audience. We're going to do this starting on D. And I did not teach any fingerings in this video, so feel free to come back once you've learned the first few notes of the flute. Thanks for coming along on this journey with me, and I hope that you learned something from the master. I have made a severe and continuous lapse in judgment, and that is because I forgot to show you all how to disassemble and clean out your flute, which is a very, very important step. I knew someone in middle school who did not swab their flute for 4 years. 4 years! Oh lord, I don't want to know what microbiomes are growing in there. So let's dissect the dissection of the flute. I just like to go in reverse order of how I put it together. So I twist out the head joint, and then I carefully set the rest of the flute down somewhere flat, usually on the case or something. Next, I'm going to take this cleaning rod. Unlike what I thought was correct in 4th grade, you don't just throw this in there and shake it around and then it gets everything clean. You need a rag as well. Make sure that this is a light silk rag, just so that it doesn't clog up your instrument. Your instrument should come with one, and if it doesn't, talk to your band director or whoever you got your instrument from. Maybe I should show that. We're going to put a corner of it into this needle-like opening. Then we're going to flip it over. Boom! Swab. Now we're going to go into this end of the head joint. We're going to go, and then give it a little, just to make sure we've got all the spit out of there. Now we can set it back in the case. The next thing I'm going to do is take off the foot joint. This one is pretty small. There's not going to be much condensation inside of it, but I still like to. Then we're going to put it back in the case. And finally, the body. This one is special because it is longer than everything else, and wouldn't you know it, it's like here. It's not long enough. So we're still gonna er-e on this side, but we're also going to er-e on this side. We have to go into both sides of the body, or else the entire thing won't be cleared of condensation, and then it's gonna spell the end of the world. Now that our body joint is clean, we can put it back inside the case. And finally, now we can finish putting everything back inside of the case. The cleaning rod will probably have a place inside of your case. I set mine just right beneath this key here. Then we close this up. Flute is all done, but what do we do with this? What I like to do is tie it around the handle of the flute. And while it is kind of gross walking around with a bandana of your own, like, spit flinging around everywhere, it's better than having it in the case and then slowly getting moldy over time. That is freaking disgusting. Thank you for going on this journey with me for real. Now remember, if you learn anything on the flute or do anything professional in life with the flute, because this video was published on youtube.com, you legally have to credit me and give me a high five if you do anything really important on the flute. See you later.